Next headline. Is Diontae Johnson done in Baltimore? So, obviously, his playing time with the Ravens ever since he got traded from the Panthers to there has not been good. The playing time's not been good. The production hasn't been good. I think he only has 1 catch for 6 yards. And he's just been pretty much irrelevant. And it hit its peak this last game against the Eagles where he didn't play at all. And Harbaugh was asked after the game, what's the status on Diontae Johnson? Is he going to be a Raven going forward? And he didn't really give a good answer. Typically, you would give the coach's cliche of like, oh, we love Diontae here. It just hasn't been working out to the degree both of us would like, but we're going to be still watching the tape, watching the film, and try to find opportunities to get him involved. And we'll work that throughout the week in practice, and hopefully some good things can happen next week and in the following weeks. But no, he was like, yeah, I don't, it's a fluid situation. I can't really give a solid answer on this. So, like, I think a lot of people over the last couple of days after hearing what Harbaugh said were wondering if Diontae was going to be done in Baltimore, if they were going to release him, because that's the vibe that Harbaugh was giving off and how he responded, that he was unsure about Diontae Johnson's status being a Baltimore Raven for the week coming up. Like, he couldn't give a clear answer that, yeah, Deontae's back. Don't worry. We're going to work things out. He's a great teammate. It was like, yeah, it's a fluid situation. We'll have to see. We'll have to see by week's end what happens. But literally just an hour ago, 30 minutes ago, we got some clarification as to why Diontae did not play in this Eagles game. And part of it was due to him refusing to enter the game. As you can see right here, headline from NFL.com. Ravens suspend wide receiver Diontae Johnson 1 game for refusing to enter Week 13 loss to the Eagles. So I don't know if that necessarily gives us clarification on Deontae's future in Baltimore outside of him being suspended for this week. But all signs are pointing to this ending poorly. Like, I feel like this suspension is just a little waiting period for what is going to come. I think we all know the answer is he's not going to be in Baltimore here soon. He might get cut after this Week 13 or Week 14 suspension, or maybe he's cut in the next couple of days. Maybe he's just like, bro, you suspended me, like you're making me look bad in front of everyone, tanking my market even more. Even though if Diontae did do this, he's not helping himself out. His actions are hurting himself too. Maybe he's just like, man, cut me. But the Ravens, here's the thing. I think the caveat as to why the Ravens wouldn't cut him, even if it's just not a good vibe there with Diontae being in Baltimore. If he leaves in free agency, if he's still on the Ravens by the end of the season, he leaves in free agency, then the Ravens could get some type of compensatory pick. Whereas I think if they release him right now, that's not going to be an option. So that's why they still might want to keep him around. Let's suspend him this game. Let's see if we could come to some sort of agreement, some sort of happy medium going forward. But if he does get released, and this is, this was talked about among Steelers circles just a couple days ago. If he is released, which again, signs are pointing to that potentially happening. I don't think any of us would be surprised at this point. If it happens, should there be a Steelers Diontae Johnson reunion? He's a good receiver for us, Pro Bowl receiver a couple years ago. Just last year, I know he was hurt a few games, but had like 700 yards, 800 yards. Was our bona fide number 2 before we traded him to the Panthers for Deontae Jackson. At that point, Pickens ascended by the end of last year. I think it was clear that Pickens was our franchise guy. He was going to be our franchise guy going forward. But Deontae, still a solid number 2. A guy that can get open. A guy that sometimes does have his catching issues, but I think is still a good player. I think what he did in Carolina this year showed that he can still play. And we know Carolina is a dismal situation, just a dumpster fire. But whenever they put in Andy Dalton, Deontae was putting up some numbers. He became like a little viable fantasy player for a good 2-3 weeks there. Gets traded to the Ravens, and it just flat out right hasn't worked. Almost like Mike Williams going from the Jets to here in Pittsburgh. We just really haven't found much work or many targets for him. Now, he did have the game-winning touchdown against the Commanders. That's something that Mike Williams can say that Diontae Johnson can't, because Deontae, I think even the target or the catch that he has gotten is really forgettable. It's one catch for 6 yards. I think it was on a drag route. Wasn't on that Thursday night game against the Bengals. Really done nothing and hasn't been in the game much, hasn't gotten many snaps, been irrelevant. And then again, it peaked last week against the Eagles, no snaps at all. I don't know, man. I think the Steelers, we just have a really good vibe right now, especially coming off of last week where I know we've been talking about ad nauseum our receiver position, how we need help. We need a guy outside of Pickens. But man, with Russ playing the way that he has been, these dudes are getting involved. Calvin Austin is catching touchdowns. Van Jefferson is coming up with clutch catches in the second half. We saw Pat Fryermuth have his best game this year. Darnell Washington typically gets a catch or two. The running backs are getting involved out of the backfield, not only in the running game, but Russ is throwing passes to him. So, like, I just don't know if there's room for Deontay Johnson. If we're complaining about Mike Williams not getting enough snaps and targets, why all of a sudden, if we bring in Deontay Johnson, is he going to be a featured piece in this offense? If Russ is throwing for 400-something yards, I don't care who's getting the catches. It doesn't matter to me. Obviously, your offense is productive. Obviously, the offense is doing good things. So I don't think we need a Deontay Johnson here. And the fact, too, I get he's familiar with the Steelers, but one of the reasons why Mike Williams isn't getting the snaps that we think he deserves right now is because he's not completely in sync with Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson trusts him to the degree that of a Calvin Austin or Van Jefferson for them to at least do their job or run the routes that Russell Wilson expects them to. So why all of a sudden, if we bring in Deontay Johnson, sight unseen here, is he going to have this awesome chemistry with Russell Wilson? I don't think it works that way. And we got a whole new coordinator here too. Deontay Johnson's used to Matt Canada being the guy. So I just don't think it would work. Would it be the worst signing to do? No. For depth purposes, almost like us bringing in Terrell Edmonds at some point. When was that? Like week 3 or week 4 this season? We brought in Terrell Edmonds, and he was good depth at the safety position, even though we had 3 solid safeties in front of him, could provide us some special teams. So if we want to bring in Deontay Johnson and he's viewed as like wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, or maybe we just have him on our practice squad, I'm not opposed to that at all. I think it would be quality depth, but I would have zero expectations. I don't think we should be going out of our way to be getting him the ball or getting him snaps because obviously our offense is working as is.